Welcome to the Unreligious Podcast, where we spread the love of Jesus without judgment or bylaws, focusing solely on Jesus Christ and what he says in the Bible. I'm Chris.
And I am Big Drewski. How's everybody doing?
I hope everybody out there is doing good. I'm doing good. It's been a very
Yeah,
blessed.
I got no complaints as of right this minute, for
No,
sure.
no, I can tell you I don't have a migraine, so things are on the up and up.
Yeah. So if this is first episode you guys have ever listened to, first off, welcome. Second off, last week was really the first week that we ever didn't drop an episode. Um, Me and Chris get really bad migraines. Both of us do. Now, I will say, I think ever since I've switched to more organic food, I haven't been getting them as bad, which is good. But, yep, see, I'm hearing the echo. I'll have to try to edit that out later. But, yeah, we both get headaches real bad, but, they knocked you down pretty good last week, and our schedules just couldn't sync up. And so I was like, well, I'll hop on and just kind of say, hey, we're not driving. But honestly, like, as bad as it sounds, the week off was somewhat nice because it was like, we've been grinding for so long. It was like a little short sabbatical. But I am glad to be back, though.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad to be back tonight. But you're right. It was actually, on here. I love talking about Jesus. I love talking about the Bible. Everything enriches my soul and helps me out. But like you said, dude, we've been on the grind for almost a year, and we haven't taken a week off. I mean, I did because I got sick in Portugal, and you covered a couple times. I mean, we haven't missed an episode. I mean, that's pretty good. I was already good. We've already talked about maybe after we hit our 1 year mark, taking a week off to just kind of.
Yeah, like you said, it was one of those things, and like we had already kind of talked about. We'd already kind of talked about just doing an open discussion episode tonight. Anyways, but the weird timing of it is like, technically it was my subject, but I was like, dude, you know what? Let's just do like an open discussion, and it was one of them things where it was like, well, yeah, let's just do an open discussion, and it's like, well, uh, you know, we'll just get on there and talk, and then you end up having a headache, and it's like, oh man, well, I can't really do an open discussion by myself. I guess I could, but but it all
Well,
worked
yeah,
out.
yeah. I was actually, I was thinking I didn't really Thursday night. I didn't really have the headache. I mean, it was there a little bit. It wasn't a migraine anymore, but I was so groggy and fuzzy headed from all the medication that I took, that I just if I had notes to go off of, it would have been okay. I could have powered through it. But the fact that this one is an open discussion, I was like, dude, my head is too fuzzy to try to just think and converse with you right
Yeah,
now.
it was kind of so I almost was like, which I guess we'll tee the topic up a little bit, but the topic tonight is why are men disappearing from the church? But like, so I ended up going to my church's men's conference over the weekend. It was awesome, and I thought about just popping my notebook up and just running through the notes and just things that stood out or whatever. But it was one of those things, man. We did the men's conference was Friday night, Saturday morning, and then me and the family went and ate Mexican food, and then we went out and did groceries and stuff, and then I ended up not getting home till like late. And then I was like, well, maybe I can do it on Sunday. Well, then I just didn't even think about it. We got up, went to church, and I didn't take my laptop or anything with me to work on stuff. A lot of times I'll take my laptop over to my dad's house, and then we ended up getting back late Sunday night. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm so beat. I'm like, if I feel like if I sat down and did an episode, I don't know that I'll necessarily do it justice. But yeah, dude, we had our men's conference. It was awesome. Um, and I'll get into more of that about what got my brain churning towards why are men disappearing. But we had a men's conference. My pastor's pastor came and spoke, did an awesome job. Um, it was cool, man, because it was like, I like getting to hang out with like other godly men that actually are trying and not just like attending or existing. So for me, that was really like a big thing. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I don't want to talk about it too much because I know we are going to kind of talk about some of that tonight. But yeah, first night, um, which the food was great, but first night we started with praise and worship, and then the main speaker spoke, which was Dr. Mike Whitson. And then we broke into small groups. And so I actually went to my worship leader's small group, um, or the worship leader at our church, and he talked about the talents. The parable of the talents. Did a great job. I took a lot away from that. And then Sunday morning, Saturday morning, we did small groups first. So that time I went into Dr. Mike Whitson's small group. It was awesome. And he talked a lot about like temptation and things that basically get in the way of like your Christian walk. But one of the things that he said to me, he's 76 years old, and one of the things that he said that really stuck out to me, he said it on the first night and during the small group, but he's like, I'm 76 years old, and he's like, I would have thought that by this point in my Christian walk, I wouldn't be struggling with the same things that I did on day one. But he's like, I'm here to tell you that they don't go away and they don't get easier. And he said, and a lot of times they actually can get worse because you're struggling with them longer and longer. So that was something that stuck out. And then praise and worship that Saturday morning, dude. I mean, um, there was like, people moving around with cameras and stuff, whatever. And I was towards the front, which I never really get a chance to do because my dad doesn't like to be that close because of the speakers, and my wife doesn't want to be that close. So I kind of took that opportunity. I went and got the seats for my group, and we were like the second row back. But I could kind of see the cameras moving around a little bit. And so I just like literally, I just kind of put my hands on my chest and closed my eyes and just sung along. And it was like one of the most, powerful things for me because it was just like I just blocked everything out and I just like focused on that. Which there on the church Facebook page, there's one little clip, one picture where you can see me just off to the side. I'm standing there with my eyes closed, but like, dude, they were doing the praise and worship. Well, one guy towards the back just started like yell praying, like, "Dear God, I'm not worthy." And he's like, "We're so thankful, and we don't deserve your," and just started like praying. And it was like, woo. And then one guy got up and went to the front and was like, "Listen, you guys got to take this chance now," and just started like bringing a word. And I mean, it was like for a minute, I was like, "All right, we're about to bust out here in a minute," But yeah, it was just good. And then Pastor Mike Whitson talked about specifically pornography, and man, some of the stats he ran down through there, man, was just insane. From the standpoint of like it's essentially like a gateway drug into everything else that's like bad in life or whatever. But it was super great. I had a great time. Very inspired. Got my batteries recharged. I got my batteries recharged, and I was also physically exhausted after it, just mentally drained or whatever. But it was a good time, man. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, sounds like a great time. Sounds kind of like the leadership summit we went to. Dude, I encourage that. If you listeners out there get an opportunity to go listen to guest speakers or a concert or anything like that at your church or a church, go. It is like uplifting. It's like somebody plugged a supercharger into your Holy Spirit inside you, and it's like, woo, yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Yeah,
Yep.
just a few notes. Yeah, Mike Whitson said, I thought at 76 I would not still struggle with the same temptations that I did at 36. I was wrong. The last 100 yards is just as tough as the first 90%. Talking about the race. There was, let's see, another thing that Pastor David actually talked about. Or, well, actually, let me back up. Mike Whitson used the story of David and Bathsheba, and some of the points that he
Mm,
hit was, um, is this the same David that was after God's own heart, that slayed Goliath, that danced in God's glory? And then he basically talked about how when you stay at home and you skip the battle and you put it on cruise, you're about to mess up. Most moments of weakness come when your guard is down, especially after a victory. I was like, dude, that was
mm,
good. He gave us a few
mm.
points, just different stuff, but he basically said you're sitting duck for the enemy if you're not in his word. I thought that was good. But, here was one that Pastor David said about the parable of the talents. Someone somewhere is doing more than you with less than what you have. That was good.
Mm.
He quoted Nick Saban a few times or whatever, but yeah, it was, like I said, man, it was good, dude. I got a lot out of it. So I will talk about the conference more in the next segment. But anything else from your week that you wanted to anything interesting happen or?
No, man, it was just the grind. We had little Juju over, and my grandson, my 7-year old. I got it, dude. He wanted to listen to one of these podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
right? He didn't care which one, just wanted to listen to Papa's podcast. So I put on the last one we did, and he was like, I started talking about him on the podcast. He's like, "You're talking about me." I said, "I am." And then I said, "My 6-year-old grandson." He goes, "Papa, I'm 7." I'm like, "Sorry, dude. I completely, yeah, Papa got it wrong. You got it wrong on for everybody to listen to. So I'm correcting it for him. He's 7." But yeah, he came over and stayed the last couple of nights. And dude, I got to tell you, that little kid with all that energy, he runs me
Oh, I'm
ragged.
sure.
I'm retired. Nana's in here working all day and I'm out babysitting, but we have a
There
blast.
was
We cut the
there
grass.
was one day, I think it was a couple weeks ago. I hit you up and said something like, "Oh, dude, my head's hurt," or something. I forgot what it was, but I was like, "Dude, I don't think I'll be able to record tonight." Whatever. You're like, "Oh, I forgot. I had my grandson." Yeah.
Yeah, I had completely forgot we were supposed to record, but yeah, he got to, we have a riding mower and pretty big backyard, so he stood between my legs and he got to drive the tractor around and mow the grass. And yeah, dude, we had a blast. I can't get enough of that kid when he's over
That's
here.
awesome.
But yeah, other than that, it was the same old thing. Just grinding away and waiting to see what the Lord does with the house in Portugal and what He does with us here and where we're going to land.
So that praise report there, if you want to elaborate, leads us into prayer requests.
Yes, so we have some movement on the house, a lot more than probably the last 8 9 months. So we had somebody look at it this last weekend. The realtor reached out to me. We have somebody looking at it again on Thursday. We have two more people that are not on the island that are scheduling their trips to the island to see the house. So there's some traction there. It's getting some movement. So we're just going to continue to pray that we're back on that track and that the Lord's going to do something miraculous and get us a buyer for that house.
That's awesome, man. I had a small praise report that Cracker Barrel changed their logo back. That was traumatic there for a second.
Dude, I was
I was
heartbroken.
like, "We did it!" But
Yeah, I was heartbroken when I saw it. I told my wife, "You've got to be
yeah,
kidding
I
me."
think they said it's
No,
been the same logo since like 1974, if I'm not
69.
69, something. I knew
Um,
it had been a while. Maybe it had been 74 years or something. Uh, But yeah, no, that was like the big saga over the weekend there. I was like, what? And then like I read today where they changed it back. I was like, good.
Dude, because their stocks like plummeted overnight when they announced they were going to
Yeah.
change it.
I know I used to go quite a bit with a buddy of mine. We used to go at least once or twice a month. Um, Not including just other trips. That was literally just me and him going once or twice a month. And uh, when COVID, because we used to go at like 6 in the morning. Well, then when COVID hit, they got to where I think you couldn't get there till like 8 in the morning or something, and then they had you could only sit at specific tables, and then they quit doing the little bowl of biscuits and stuff that you could get for free. You had to like ask for them, and then the prices went up, and that was part of the reason we quit going was just because of some of that. But it was funny with all this Cracker Barrel. It's either genius marketing or they just really almost messed up. But with all this, I was telling my wife, I was like, I really kind of want Cracker Barrel now, but I can't support the new logo. So I don't know.
I, wa- I saw some comment on it. Some guy commented. He said, for one, alcohol does not belong in the Cracker Barrel.
That does feel weird.
He said, for two, replace the gas fireplace with the old big burning wood fireplaces, make it feel cozy like
Mm-hmm.
home. And there is no room on the Cracker Barrel menu for tofu.
I didn't even know they had tofu, man, just to be honest with you.
He said tofu or vegan options. That shouldn't even be on their menu.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm not going to, now if I want to eat healthy breakfast, I'll go to First Watch. But, like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to Cracker Barrel because I'm on a diet. So it's like, again, it's like, dude, you got to know your target audience there. Um,
Yep.
so prayer requests, and I'll pray over it whenever I'll pray, and I'll hit some of mine when we go. But my buddy's wife, found out that she had essentially an aggressive stage 3 breast cancer. It does respond well to radiation, typically, and she goes for her first treatment Thursday. So I do want to make sure to pray for that. Our buddy Garrett's still down. He essentially cannot go to the doctor until September 9th, unless somebody cancels, but they think it's his lungs that's causing the heart issue. So we're going to pray for him. Buddy of mine's going through just a messy, messy divorce. Just the little bit that I know is not good. May or may not have been an actual threat on his life, but he feels guilty for divorcing because of what the Bible talks about. Which I took a deep dive on that. I don't necessarily have time to break it down, but there is I think it's called the abandonment of an unbeliever. But I just tried to talk to him and talk to him through some stuff, and I was like, man, you gotta not feel guilty because like there's kind of an actual threat on his life, and his kids were in a terrible spot and everything, so it's just a mess. But I want to pray for him. And then my dad actually just over the weekend knee flared up real bad. Went in Monday. They sliced it, kind of let it drain a little bit because he had some fluid build up, and then he had surgery this morning. So everything's looking pretty good, but yeah, that's kind of my list. And then, did you have any?
Just the house in Portugal. We're going to put that back on the prayer list, especially since we're getting some movement on it. It'd be good to put some prayers over that. And like I told you pre-broadcast, I've got somebody in my family that's got hit with some rough news that they were not prepared for and didn't want. It's nothing life-threatening or anything like that. It's just a lot for this person to take on. So we need to pray for some comfort and some peace for one of my family members, specifically one of my daughters. So,
Okay,
yep,
taking notes here as I go.
yep.
All right, well, we will definitely pray for that. And then again, if you guys have any prayer requests whatsoever, feel free to either comment on this video. You can send us a message on social media, whatever you guys want to do, however you want to get them to us. and we will add them to the list. You can also remain anonymous, or we can also pray off the air if you want us to do that as well. Um, but we'll go ahead and pray, and we'll get started. Dear God, we just pray. Well, first we want to thank you for all the many blessings that we overlook on a day-to-day basis. You're such a good God to us. You're so amazing in every single way, and there's so many day-to-day things that we just overlook and we don't thank you for. So we want to make sure to stop and say thank you. We want to pray for Chris's daughter. She got some rough news that she wasn't expecting. Obviously, she didn't have time, to digest this news, God. But we just want to pray and put your hand over her, put your hand over her life, give her peace, give her patience, give her understanding, give her vision. Let her know that you're in control. Everything that you do is for the greater good. You can take the absolute worst situations and you can turn them into a good situation. You never stop working, and we're just so thankful for that. But we just pray that you keep your hand over her life right now, and as she goes through this difficult phase. God, we also want to thank you for the praise report on Chris's house. It's starting to stir a little bit. It's starting to get a little interest, God. We just pray that you keep a fire under these people that's interested, that they can begin to talk about this house. And even if one of them's not interested, maybe they know 5 other people that is. We just want to get a fire going that can just continuously build. And they've been praying for this so long. It's been such a dark cloud, and we know that it's a difficult season that is designed for them to come out stronger and better and closer to you, God. And they're leaning on you for your guidance, your understanding, and your perfect will. But we just pray that you send the right person. You use this momentum to guide the right person to this house so they can turn that chapter of their life and move on into the next. And we just pray that you'll line everything up. And if there's any difficulties moving forward with this their future house, we pray that you pave the way. If there's anybody that is standing in the way, that you just pave the way for Chris and his wife, just to where they can make the correct decision, and that they can have a home that they can minister in and use to build your glory. God, I want to pray for my best friend. His wife has an aggressive stage 3 cancer. God, they're two godly people. They believe in you. They do your work. And this is just a difficult time for them and their family, God. We just pray that you keep your healing hand over them right now. We pray for miraculous healing, if it be your will, that you can miraculously heal her cancer, and in a way that only you can get credit, and that we can point to you and say you did that. But we pray that whatever happens through this, that we see the good, and that they can look through this and be a light, and it could be a part of their testimony during this difficult time. They're ready for the battle. They fully trust in you, and they know that you're going to get through them. But we just pray that however this ends up going, that you can be, your light can shine through, and that you can touch this situation. God, we pray for Garrett. We pray for peace, for understanding, for patience. God, we pray for all anxiety to disappear, all fear to disappear, and we just pray that he can trust you more than ever during this difficult time, and it could be a season. God, when he goes in for his appointment on the 9th, we pray that you point the doctors in the right direction, that they can correctly diagnose this fast, get him up and at him and back on his feet. God, he loves you so much, and he's trying to live for you, God. We just pray that you can turn this chapter in his life. I also want to pray for my other friend who's going through his difficult divorce, God. You know the situation. Pray that you touch his heart, heal his heart, and he can just, all the guilt, all the shame, all the disappointments, all the fear of the unknowns, all that can be just wiped away, and he can just heal in your presence and move forward, and him and his family can move on from this terrible situation, and that you and your glory can be shown through it. And lastly, I want to thank you for my dad coming through surgery. It was a quick turnaround, a lot of fast moving parts. I mean, literally within 3 days, he was, had a little bit of soreness, and he was going into surgery. But God, you expedited the process. You got him in and out of surgery. He's looking like he's going to make a fast recovery, but I just pray that during this time that he can rest and find solace in you. And we pray for quick, speedy recovery so that he can get back to doing what he loves. And we want to pray for this podcast tonight and that it falls on the correct ears that it needs to fall on. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
You are welcome. Let me get my headset back on.
Give me a second here, man. Crack a window.
I had to put my headset back on anyways. So tonight's episode. So what caused this? You still got your earbuds on, right? Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if you. I was stalling slightly, but so what started this was I felt really strongly pulled towards doing that long series on suicide and how I thought it was a demonic stronghold, and I just feel like God not only ministered that to like my spirit, but also Chris's spirit, and I feel like we were able to show definitively that was a demonic stronghold. And Chris took his next topic, and the whole time I was kind of bouncing back and forth between topics, and nothing was really sticking like definitively from the standpoint of like I was like, and I just was kind of praying like, okay, God, I'm not sure what direction I need to go in. And it was like, okay, and I was just praying like, okay, show me what direction you want me to go in. And what started this was my pastor a few weeks back. He got up and he was announcing we had our women's conference, and the next weekend was men's conference. And he was like, all right, women, we got our conference coming up. You guys absolutely love these things. We're seeing great turnout. Super looking forward to whatever. And then he's like, all right, now men, let me minister to you for a second here. And I was like, oh crap, where's this going? And he's like, okay, I hear you loud and clear. You don't like men's conferences. We understand. We've received the message. You guys just don't like them. And he's like, for the 11 of you that signed up, we're super excited. But, to the other, 800, 900 men that's in this room, he's like, all I'm asking is we're going to do this one last men's conference, but please show up. And now, admittedly, when I was sitting there, I was like, ooh, I haven't got my ticket yet either, but I'm just procrastinating because I still had like 2 weeks, And I thought he was kind of kidding, and then he said something again the next week, and I was like, I don't know if he's kidding or not. And so I actually talked to one of the pastors, the associate pastors, and I was like, are we really not having any more men's conferences? And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, that just doesn't respond well with this church congregate, whatever word you want to use. And I was like, man, I said, that kind of broke my heart because, like, I love the men's conferences, dude. Now, granted, I've not been here super long. I only got to go to one before this. And he's like, yeah, we're just seeing a lot more success with, like, small groups. So, like, Bible studies in barber shops, Bible studies in hardware shops, restaurants. Like, they got all these different small groups that meet at separate times, and they're just seeing a lot of growth with that. And he's like, now, don't worry. We're still going to do events. We're still going to minister to men. We're just not going to do men's conferences. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, am I weird? Am I just one of those weirdos that just really likes conferences? Like, I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that, like, you wouldn't see a men's conference and be like, yes, So I was just thinking through that leading up to the men's conference, and we went to the men's conference, and it was awesome, and I had this just like awesome spiritual like woo, and then as I was leaving, I was like, man, can that really be it? And the whole time I was just thinking like, why is it that you can't get men to men's conferences? And I started thinking back to like different small groups, different events that the church has had, and it is sort of like pulling teeth to get men to come out. And so I talked to Chris, and I was like, man, I think for my topic that this is what I want to talk about, but I just want to sort of have just like more of a discussion, not necessarily like where we have points and whatever, like just sit and talk. You know, but I guess it's sort of a two-parter, you know, and like I said, we'll just open it up and roll with it. But like, my thing is like, a why is it hard to get men to men's conferences? And B, why is it hard to get men to go to church? Because, and I'm not going to tell like nobody's business or nothing like that, but I have noticed like when I go to church, bless you, there's a lot of different like women that I'll see just like they're there every single week with their kids, but like the husband's not really there much. Now, maybe he just works on Sundays or whatever. I'm not going to judge or nothing, but it is like as I'm looking around, I'm like, man, she's here every single week, and I just don't see the dad or the husband or whoever. So that's the general questions, and then like I do have a few that I'll kind of throw out as we go, but I guess like, do you like men's conferences, or like are you kind of like, yeah, I know you had a weird experience with one before, but
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a couple of them. The last one that I went to, I had a very not good experience, and it it was just I said it on the podcast. I walked in and there's 350 guys in the sanctuary getting ready to do this no regrets, and I was alone, dude. I was alone the whole time for 4 hours. No, I tried to make conversation, and nobody really seemed interested in conversating with me. It was almost like clicky. Does that make
yeah,
sense? Where you had your groups of guys who came together, who are buddies, who hang out together, and that's just kind of the groups that there were there. And if you weren't part of one of those groups, well, you kind of were just out on your own. And so for me, the men's conference, I don't know what it is about them that men don't want to go. I mean, if you think about it, it could be you get a bunch of alpha males in a room together. you
yeah,
know? But no, I like for me it was disappointing because of what happened, and it made me not want to do another one. I don't unless I actually had two or three guys buddies that I wanted to go with, that I knew I was going to be able to sit with and conversate and not sit there by myself and look weird. But then my wife and I went to this global leadership summit, and it was a completely different
yeah.
experience. We got invited to sit at a table with some friends that we know from church. We made new friends, and it was a great time. So, but the men's conference, dude, I don't know, it was just different.
How do you think like being in that situation? How do you think because I mean, again, I don't know. We could have church leaders listen to this or whatever, but like, you know, how do you think that I guess they could have corrected that situation from the state? Like, obviously, which I'm the type of person, anybody in my general area, I'm going to talk to. That's just how I am, because I was like a heathen that wanted nothing to do with church. And so my brain still goes to, I never assume that that person goes to church there or has ever been there or is even a Christian. That's just where my brain is. But like, so like both times that I sit down, now granted, my brother, actually two of my step brother-in-laws, or however that connects, I got to go, both of them came the first night, and then one of them came the next morning. The other guy had something he had to do. Um, and there was one guy that I had bumped into several times, just that I go to church with. And I'd said, hey, what's up? How's it going? And, but just never really got to hang out with him. Well, he was sitting there. And so we ended up kind of forming like a little, clique or whatever you want to call it, to where like the rest of the conference we kind of hung out and stuff. But like Friday night, there's a different surrounding group that was at our table because we had three really long tables, and there was probably however many seats at each one. I mean, it was like massive, just straight row of like three rows. It wasn't like round tables, but Friday night and then Saturday morning, we had different surrounding groups, but like I made it a point, everybody that was like within two ish chairs of me to try to be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Just because part of like it was because of your story, but also just like I just think like I just never assumed, but like, how do you think the church or the event, I guess, could have maybe fostered a situation where like that didn't happen? If that makes
I
sense.
think, yeah, I think that maybe at the beginning of the conference, if one of the main speakers would have said, "Hey, listen, if you guys see anybody wandering around by themselves or not sitting with anybody, invite them over to your table and get to know them. This is supposed to be a community. We're all supposed to be a bunch of guys getting together. So let's not leave anybody out here. Let's make sure we include everybody because that's what we're about." I think maybe an announcement like that would have made it a little more comfortable for the probably three guys that I saw and myself that really weren't connecting with anybody. I think it would have made it a lot easier for us to connect, have somebody walk up, "Hey man, you see you're by yourself. Why don't you come sit at
I
our table with
guess
us?"
if you were in that moment, would it have made it better or worse? Like, because the way my brain is I'm just very blunt and direct. But like, do you think it would have made it better or worse if somebody was like, "Hey, so I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but is there anybody here that's like by themselves that just showed up because you're just here to see what's up? Raise your hand." And then have those people raise their hand, and then basically be like, "All right, cool. So we got one guy here, one guy here. These guys are by themselves. Hey, is there anybody that's got an extra spot at their table that would welcome them?" Do you think that that would have been too intense, or do you think it would have been better, like kind of like what you said, just to be like, "Hey, if you guys see anybody, like would that have made it better or worse if you were in that spot?"
Well, me personally, I can speak for myself. I don't like being put on the spot, especially in front of that
Mm-hmm.
many people. So if they said, "Hey, raise your hand if you're here by yourself," I probably would have just sat next to somebody and kept my hand
Yeah,
down, "Oh, not me. I don't want to be called out here. Hey, look at all the loners out there in the
yeah,
audience. Hey, let's help." That's kind of, for me, it would have been awkward. I would have probably would have raised my hand, and it probably would have turned out really well for me had that happened. I probably would have raised my hand real
yeah.
low.
Fear bond.
Over here,
Yeah.
over here. Yeah, it's me. I'm alone. But yeah, I think it would have helped, Drew. I mean, I
See,
think
I'm
that
more like a
when
rip the band aid off, like, "Hey dude, listen, we're all going to the same place. If you just signed up, got a ticket by yourself, or who you're supposed to come with didn't show up, raise your hand." And like, that's just how I am. But at the same time, I'm just very blunt. So like that's why I'm asking, because I'm like, well, maybe that would make it worse. I don't know, because I guess my thing is I'm like, well, I guess if you're like, "Hey, if you guys see anybody wandering around, invite them over." Well, there's some guys that'll be like, "Oh, they're shy too," or whatever. That guy's got a Cowboys hat on, or I don't know, whatever. It's like, but
yeah, but it leaves a bad impression. And had I not been a member of Crossroads Community, well, I just said it. If had I not been a member of my church, um, I don't know that I would have gone back.
yeah,
You know, if I was just like somebody who was just curious, maybe happened to be at a service on Sunday out of curiosity and heard about this men's conference and thought, "You know what? I'm not a member of the church, but I'd like to see what this is all about." And then to have that happen,
or
I mean, I can
God
see
forbid,
how that would be like,
or
I ain't going
God
back.
forbid, they're like, I'm so alone. I feel like ending my life, but
Mm.
like I'm so isolated and alone. I'm just desperate enough to try this Jesus thing out and go to this men's conference because maybe I'll make a friend, and then they get completely isolated and rejected the whole time. Like God forbid, and I hope that didn't happen anything like that at the men's conference I went to. But again, I think it takes more men with similar mentality. Like now that you've been through that, you're probably going to be more likely to be like, hey, that guy's sitting over there, man. Seems like I don't know. I don't know if you're at least going to be like, hey, man, what's up? Are you here with anybody? Like, oh, okay. Worst case, if they are here with somebody, it's like, oh, okay. Well, now I can just chit chat or whatever. But I tried my best as I was walking through the halls, whatever. Hey, man, what's up? Because I'm like, maybe I'm the only one that says hey to somebody while they're there or whatever. But
I don't know. You might be. All I can tell you is that if somebody is not a member of that church and they didn't come there with people and they got the impression that I got, that's not a good impression. And I know, dude, I know that our church, my pastors, that was the last thing in the whole world they want is for somebody to feel alone coming to our church. So I did address it with one of the pastors, and he said that he was really sorry about what had happened and that they would think about what they can do next year to improve
yeah,
that, make sure everybody feels included. So we'll see. Hopefully they'll do like you and say, hey, raise your hand if you're here alone so we can seat you up with somebody, or maybe you never know. But I know our pastors, and the pastor I talked to was very concerned with that. He was like, that should never be. That should never be. Us as Christian men should be backing each other. And when we see somebody alone, it is our duty to go over and introduce ourselves and try to make them feel at home. That's what we're supposed to do as Christians, even not even as pastors, but just as Christians in general. So, yeah, for me, dude, it was. I'm glad I'm a member there because I probably wouldn't have gone back ever if I wasn't.
yeah. I mean, like you said, dude, that should absolutely never happen. Even if I was a member at my church and I went there and had that happen, it would seriously make me second think things. So what about like when you go to a men's conference, um, specifically a men's conference, like what types of things are you looking for that piques your interest? Because like I know for me, I don't mind to get like preached to or basically like hey, you could do better, whatever. But like I know for me, I think there's a lot of guys that feel like we're problem solvers, but it's like things that men like is fellowship, competition, and fixing problems, right? So it's like when I go to a men's conference, don't get me wrong, I enjoy preaching, I enjoy breaking open the word, but like I want specific tools that like I can take and apply to my life outside of just that men's conference, right? So like I don't want to necessarily just show up and it be like a motivational thing. Um, don't get me wrong, I want to be inspired, but like I don't want to just sit and be like told, iron sharpens iron, go out and be a man and beat you. Like that's all fine, but like I like to have tools, right, that I can take, like specific things like breakout rooms, sexual temptation. That's something any man can sit here and say they don't struggle with it. They're liars. Okay, now you can overcome that. I mean, I quit watching pornography however long ago. It was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do at the time, but like you can do it and you can move on from that. But it's like there's certain things that everybody struggles with: sexual temptation, pride. There's certain themes, but it's like me personally, like, dude, if it was an apologetics conference, I feel like both of us would be like, yes.
Oh yeah,
Like the art of like praying, like what really is prayer. Like I know Bradley, one of our associate pastors, taught a prayer class, and I'm like, that's something so simple that like I would actually love to do is take like a prayer class, like not to like, oh, here's the fancy words you do, but it's like no, like okay, if you can give me tools to make my prayer life like 10x, like yeah. So for me, if I'm being completely honest, if I had to strip it down, it's like okay, Music is definitely part of it. Like if you have two or three like Christian rock bands or something, whatever, I'm Gucci. That would be cool. Sorry, I'm echoing. Like that's fine. Food, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it could be hot dogs or whatever, but it's like food got to be decent, preferably on point. But it's like it don't have to be nothing fancy. But it's like I'm looking for a good meal, decent music. I'm doing the thumbs up thing. My my mic is doing the thumbs up bubbles. But like I want tools. Like the fellowship is a huge part of it. But it's like give me tools that I can take back. Like how do you spiritually realign your family if God's not first, like stuff like that. But when you go to a men's conference, like what are you looking for? Like just honestly, like what are you looking for? Where you're like, if you've seen a flyer, you're like, okay, dude, that looks cool.
Well, this is going to be kind of funny, but the first thing I'm looking for is brotherhood and acceptance. Honestly, I'm looking for some acceptance and some brotherhood. But apart from that, I'm the same way as you. When I look at a conference, whether it's men, women, you know, co-ed, either way, I'm looking, is this a topic that I could get something out of? Is this a topic that is going to resonate with me? Is this a topic that I can apply to my life every day? If it is, absolutely, I'm all in. Teach me how to be a better husband. Teach me how to be a better dad. Teach me how to pray better. Teach me how to, live better. I'm about all that. I'm all about learning everything I can. Um, so if for me, I look at the topic, and if it's not something I'm interested in, or I don't think it's really going to do much for me, then I just rather, pass it up. But if it's something that I'm looking at and I'm like, man, I struggle with that, or I need some work with that, or I could polish that a whole lot, then yeah, I'm all in. I want to go check it out and hear what
It's
has to be
like,
said.
you have two flyers, right? And it's like flyer one is like, breakout room number one, evangelism. Most people are going to be like, man, I don't know. I'm not going to go try to, like, I don't know if I'm going to go stand on a box and preach to people on the side of the street. But, like, flyer
Right.
number two, instead of evangelism, if it said how to witness in the break room, you know,
Mm.
how to, how to spread your faith to those you work with, or how do you talk to people about Jesus? Like something like that is going to pique my interest more because, to be honest with you, man, like, and I did a little bit of like just research and just different things, but like one of the things that I seen while I was kind of like just studying on like why sometimes these things fail is like there was one that basically said women women love women's conferences because they love the fellowship, they love the social aspect, they love getting together, and it listed all these things off, and it was like they love the motivational side of it, the emotional side of it, and it was like all this stuff. But then it was like the reason why men's conferences fail is because literally they do the women's conference and then they change the graphics to masculine looking graphics and then try to do the same exact thing. And it's like, for
Hmm.
me, I'm like, that's sort of like, it sounds bad, but how many times has like a church rolled out a men's conference and it's like, you look at the flyer and you're like, I don't know if I want to go to that. And to be honest with you, we're just being honest. When you're looking at the flyer, it kind of looks sort of like feminine, and you're looking at it and you're like, this don't really pique my interest. It's like the pictures are in black and white, and it's got this real pretty looking, and you're looking at it and you're like, like I don't know. Whereas like if it was like a black flyer that looked like like a barbecue flyer or something, and it was like barbecue fellowship, tools for your Christian walk or something. Most guys, like, if sometimes it's like the flyer looks kind of feminine, and then you walk in and it's like, it's sort of like, it has that vibe of like, well, like, this looks exactly like the women's conference, but we're going to make, like, this graphic is going to be like racing. This one's going to be like, I don't know, a cowboy or something. And it's like, they literally just redesign it. And it's like, dude, I mean, I know I've been to, I don't know how many where I'm like looking at the flyer, like not the church I'm at now, but just in the past. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's not really anything on here that sounds interesting to me, but like promoting them in a somewhat feminine way in the past has been an issue as well.
I mean, at that point, if you're just going to change the artistry a little bit on the flyer, you might as well just have a co-ed conference.
Yeah.
If you're going to cover the same exact topic, pretty much.
So this is, so these are a couple things, right? Because I told you I was going to have a couple bullet points, but now this is church, not just men's conference, but the absence of men in church and what it means for families, communities, and the next generation. Um, Johnny Hunt said one time, I think I've told you about this before, but it kind of made sense. But it was like a lot of new believers would have to backslide with the majority of the men that fellowship at the church. And that's kind of like a heavy statement, but I know, like, you and me personally, we've played the whole flash in the pan Christian thing before where we just show up and go to church. But, like, as far as, like, the
Yep.
next generation, families, communities, do you think churches nowadays do a great job at, like, fostering communities for men?
Wow. Put me on the spot here. Um, well, I guess we're just being straight, transparent, and honest. I don't think that there's enough. I think that they try, but I think one conference a year with some guest speakers, some good guest speakers, but one conference a year, I mean, that leaves a whole lot of room to forget in between. And I think that, if they were to gear, well, I told you the whole story about my pastor. The men are designated by God to be the spiritual leader of the family. It is your job, whether you like it or not. It has been passed to you by God. And if you are not the spiritual leader, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, with men being the spiritual leader of every family, or supposed to be, I wasn't for years. I just have been recently. But I think that if they were to gear more training, more conferences, more events for the men, and disciple them and let them disciple their wives. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Like
So I think
workshops.
that the church, yeah, I think that the churches, yes, the women's ministry is absolutely important. Absolutely. We've got to have the women's ministry. It just wouldn't be a church without it. But in the same sense, I think that the churches need to really focus on pouring into the men so that they can take those lessons and that leadership back to their family and their house. I mean, it's okay to get your sermon on Sunday. Everybody gets their sermon on Sunday. It's for the whole congregation. But I think the churches really need to invest in the men, and they need to really pour into the men and say, look, and explain, you have to be the spiritual leader. It's not going to work if you're not. I've tried it, Drew. You know that. I've done for personal experience. I know that trying to let your wife be the spiritual leader, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I truly believe that the churches need to pour more into the men of the congregation and of the church, because they play a vital role not only in the church but in their family life and their jobs as well.
Um, So I'm looking at the time, and I'll this will be like kind of my last question. I actually would like to flow this into a part two as well because I feel like we're barely getting it cracked open. But like,
There's a lot of meat left on the
you
bone
want
on
to
this, yeah.
know, and like I said, I'm actually enjoying this like open discussion format. But like, you want to know one thing that I think is a big issue overall with like men's ministry, men's conferences, men stuff in general is like, you know, we're men that faithfully attend our churches. Even in the past, we've gone to churches, you know. Um, I'm 35 years old, and I've been like literally, with the exception of 10 years of my life, essentially been on a church pew. But you want to know one thing I think is like a big issue with why churches are losing men? Have you ever one single time been asked from a church what you would like to see at a men's event?
No,
Me neither.
no,
It's
I can
always
honestly
that there's a
no.
flyer, it's put together, they advertise it, but like I've never one single time been asked, hey, so, random poll in my email or anything. Hey, we want to make next year's men's conference awesome. What would you like to see?
Mm, never. I've never received an email. I've never even been questioned in church by the pastors or elders or anybody. I mean, nobody has ever. It's always just, hey, this is the conference. These are the speakers, and this is what they're going to talk
Yeah,
about.
and
You know,
it's
and I think you're onto
it's
that. Yeah,
always
that's
the same cookie cutter, like we're going to talk about sexual temptation. We're going to talk about discipleship. Iron sharpens iron. We're going to talk about, it's kind of always the same thing. And then it's like, I feel like there's a lot of times where churches will be like, well, we don't know why, but we just can't get men to show up to church, or oh, we just can't get men to show up to events, and we're struggling. We can't get men involved. We don't know what we're doing, and it's like, have you ever one time asked them, like not go back in a back room and be like, well, you know, we'll have like some wrestlers wrestling out front or what? It's like, have you ever just asked men like what? Because I tell you one thing that I don't get a lot of is just to like sit around and talk with other godly men and just literally
mm,
talk and just be like,
mm,
you know, once a week, once a month, whatever, and just talk and listen. Maybe I feel like talking, maybe I feel like listening or whatever, but it's like just sitting down with other men and like talking. But like you said, I think a lot of men, and we can talk about it on the next one. Um, but like I think a lot of men, they're so sick of getting like preached at of like everything they do wrong and how they like essentially can't control their urges, or they can't do this or do that, and it's like they don't read their bibles, they don't lead their homes. Now don't get me wrong, there is a lot of men that do fall short, but at the same time it's like I think a lot of men are like, dude, I get it, like I need to do better, I'm terrible, I don't want to hear it. But I've never one time been polled or asked or nothing like what.
dude, how cool would that be to be sitting at church on a Sunday morning and have the person who does the comment card say, hey, we have added not just a comment card, but we've added a survey for all men and women for conferences. And we would like all of you to check off the boxes of topics you're interested in, or even write down a topic you're interested in. And we're going to survey all these, and then we're going to start coming up with a good conference for everybody, maybe 3 times a year. Like I said, Drew, I got the Saturday morning men's group that I go and meet with. I've been bad about it, but I went this Saturday, and dude, here's something that's crazy, okay? And then I'll let you finish up, but I just want to say this. When I started going to this men's group, I always felt inferior. Like these guys that have been going to this church for the last 15 years that I know have got it so together. like they're walking the walk with God. They don't have issues. And look at me. I'm just over here just stumbling and fall. And then when you sit down with these men and you get raw and you get real, you realize they are just as messed up
Mm-hmm.
as you are. They may have the vision from the outside of having it all together, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, they're just as messed up as you are. So it's actually encouraging to know that you're not alone in being a failure.
Yeah.
I mean, we all
Yeah.
are, right?
I mean, like you said, that's the one thing, like you said, that opened my mind when I first started going to round tables at my current church and sitting around talking with other men and being like, I didn't really ever think, I thought I was the only one that struggled with that. I thought I was the only one that, at the end of the day, after I've ran the race of trying to be a good Christian role model and witness to those around me and be a light and then also do a good job so I don't look like I'm lazy, because that would be a terrible witness for a Christian. And, I didn't choke anybody out today and I got cut off 9,000 times. Now I'm completely exhausted and I'm on empty, but now I have to walk through the door and I can't be empty for my family. I don't have anything left in the tank. I've got no energy. I'm
Hmm.
tired. I'm my patience is at zero. But it's like I've got two daughters. Even my 1 year old is like reaching up, going, "Daddy, Daddy," and it's like my wife has missed me all day long, and she want. And it's like, you know, that's something that a lot of men struggle with, but you don't hear it a lot. And but that comes, like you said, sitting down and talking with men. And so I guess the perfect way to wrap this up, and I'm going to put a post on the Facebook page, but the perfect way to wrap this up is, men, what do you want to see in a men's conference? And what is
Mm.
keeping you from going to church? What are you lacking? What is the church not doing for you? We're gonna put this we're gonna put this on our Unreligious Podcast Facebook page. Ladies, if your man doesn't go to church, or you know a man in your life that doesn't go to church, or if your man does go to church, ask him to hop on here and take this comment on this little thing that we got on our social media page. And so we want to see what you guys think. But I think this was a great discussion, man. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the part two. Um, we can actually,
I'm digging this open discussion, dude. I'm actually really
yeah.
liking this.
So I want to talk about more men's conferences, more men's events. Talk about church a little bit as well, because I do think the men of today's generation are just falling away from church. And I'll see if I can't pull up some stats and stuff as well. But I'm also going to try to poll a few of my friends and basically be like, hey, man, like,
What
what are you looking for in a men's
What are you
conference?
looking
I'm
for?
echoing. What are you looking for in a men's conference? And what keeps you from going to church? But because honestly, dude, if we can help crack this code, we could really save a lot of churches and a lot of ministries. So
I agree 100%, dude. I think that's a great idea. So, yeah, we'd love some feedback from the listeners, y'all. Please give us some feedback on this, because Drew and I mean, he's on to something here. Drew's got a really good topic, and it's a good question to ask. And I think we're going to dive a little bit deeper into why they're not staying at church next week when we come back.
well, that is all I got. I am Big Drewski,
And
and
I'm
this has been
Chris.
the Unreligious Podcast. Y'all have a good rest of the week.
Like, subscribe, and share.
Please.